In this CineGuru MAX tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to set up a more complicated camera move using camera nodes. So here's a straightforward level, but this time we've got a character in it, and rather than just doing a simple kind of push in or a simple sort of A to B camera move where we just move in a straight line, what I want to try and do now is create a sort of a more cinematic move that kind of goes around our character and sort of shows what they're looking at. So we'll start by placing a camera node down, sorry, a camera marker. So let's just pop that about there. And if we pop an endpoint down where we want our shot to end up, I guess that's kind of on the other side of our character, about here. Now if we were to join these two elements together, we'd basically just have a situation where the camera would go from the position and orientation of camera 1, and it would kind of go round, and then it would sort of turn like this and kind of almost go through our character. We don't want that. We want it to go round in a nice kind of arc like this. So the way to do that is to add a camera node. And we're actually going to add two of them. We're going to add one kind of about here, and we're going to add another one kind of about there. We can always tweak the position and the rotation a bit later, but what I want to try and do is build like a little path around this guy. Might even move our endpoint in a little bit as well. So let's take a look at the camera nodes then. So they have three editable parameters. Film time, and then you've got the focal length start and focal length end. However, when you're building a complex shot that has camera nodes involved, film time works a little bit differently to how it has so far. So if we go back to our camera marker, if I was to link these two elements together, or even just to have a static camera, film time defines the entire length of the shot. So what we're saying here is this is a 5-second shot. It's going to take 5 seconds to go from here to here. When you're using it in conjunction with the camera nodes, film time is actually just the time it takes to reach the next node in the sequence. So if I now join our camera node to our camera, and then our two nodes together, and then our endpoint to our second node, we've created a little path now. And basically film time, it's set to 5. What that means is it's going to take 5 seconds to go from the position and orientation of the camera marker to the first node. And this node also has a film time of 5, so it's going to take 5 seconds to go to the next node in the sequence, which is here. And this one also has a film time of 5, so it's going to take 5 seconds to get to our endpoint. So that's fine, but that does create quite a long shot. It's sort of 15 seconds long really, which is perhaps a bit longer than we really want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set those a little bit lower. So we'll change the film time for the camera marker to 3. So it's going to take 3 seconds to get from here to our first node. And then we'll change the film time on the node to be 3 as well. And then we'll change the film time on the second node to be 4. So it's going to take slightly longer to go from here to the endpoint. So effectively the camera's going to sort of slow down a little bit for this last section. So yeah, all of these markers are on the floor at the moment. So if I just move our police officer out the way and then kind of group select all of these elements, I can raise them up a little bit. I haven't messed around with focal length yet, but we will do that in a second. Oh, that's not as intended. There you go. Right, so that's probably about the right height. Let's move our character back into the middle of this. And obviously we'll need a way to trigger this, so we'll do that how we've done every other cinematic so far. So we'll drop in a cine trigger zone, and we will draw a connection from that to the camera marker. So as the player enters the zone, the camera marker is triggered and it starts moving towards that first node. That's what I like about the visual logic system. It's very easy to see the connections, so you can very quickly establish a path. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we're kind of moving around our character. Perhaps some of the rotation is not quite as smooth as we would like. That can be changed. And there are other ways that you can get cameras to point at things. We can cover that in a future tutorial. So yeah, I mean, you can tweak the rotation of this to get it a little bit smoother if you want and to make it a bit less jarring. But the thing I really want to show you is the zoom feature. So the focal length that you can set on a camera node it works for this part of the journey that it defines. So what we've said for this second camera node is that it'll take 4 seconds to go from this camera node to the camera endpoint over here. But what we can also do is we can say that, okay, when the camera gets to this node, the focal length at the start will be 80, so quite wide. But what we can do is change that and say that by the time it gets to the endpoint, it will be 40, so it'll do a zoom in. And there's nothing that says that these nodes have to be in line with each other. You can have them rise, fall, whatever. You can kind of make a nice smooth motion, or you can have them going up and down. So let's just kind of put them a little bit out of alignment with each other. And so now, hopefully, what we'll see is the camera will kind of slowly rise, actually, and it may even start to kind of look over this character's shoulder. If I can just line this up a little bit better. Yeah, maybe like that. Let's give that a go. So now, what we've said is that the focal length, just on this last section of the journey, starts quite wide and then goes into quite a tight shot. So again, we're kind of gaining a bit of height, going around our character, and just on that last bit, see, we're now zooming in, actually kind of more on the back of his head, but that's fine. And of course, if you wanted to then put in another shot in the sequence, even if it was just a static shot, for instance, you could drop in a camera marker, and you would just literally join that to the endpoint like that. So, just have a quick look at that. Going around our character. And then we'll cut to camera 2, which actually we didn't line up at all, so we're just pointing off at something completely random, but you get the idea. And so with that, you can start to build up some really quite complicated camera moves. I don't think there's a limit on the number of nodes you can have, or if there is, I think it's like 30 or something. So you can really kind of move the camera in quite interesting ways. You could have the camera kind of snake through a building, for instance, and have different nodes defining where the camera needs to be. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to be creative with that. So that's it for this tutorial, but next time we'll be taking a look at how you can more accurately specify what your cameras are going to point at using focal points. So join me then.